Clive Lewis, known to many as Siesta Lewis due to his constant napping, gave us what has since come to be known as the Lewis trilemma, which gives us three options when it comes to how we should view the Jesus of the Gospels. He was either a liar, a lunatic, or exactly who he allegedly claimed to be, the Lord. My Canadian brother from another mother, Apologia, makes an incredibly compelling case that there's a fourth option. And as life would have it, that fourth option also begins with the letter L. What are the odds? Apologia argues that the Jesus of the Gospels could simply be, wait for it, legend. The Cambridge Dictionary, which I prefer almost solely so as to piss off those Oxford snobs, defines legend as a very old story or a set of stories from ancient times, or the stories, not always true, that people tell about a famous event or person. They give examples. The dance was based on several Hindu legends. Legend has it, equals people say, that he always wore his boots to bed. Remember, the Gospels weren't written until at the earliest 30 to 40 years after the events they claimed to be documenting, at a time when the vast majority of people were illiterate and believed in things like a literal 6-day creation, talking snakes and donkeys, dragons, witches, dying, resurrecting godmen, the 6-day work week, and trickle down. Nor do any of the authors even claim to be eyewitnesses to the events. Indeed, the Gospels are anonymous and written in Greek, whereas Jesus and his disciples would have spoken Aramaic and perhaps some Hebrew. So we have 30 years minimally of these stories being passed from person to person in an illiterate, ignorant, and superstitious world where the average adult doesn't even know things today's average third grader knows. Now, join me in the 21st century where this guy, a medical doctor, investigates, I use that term loosely, people possessed by demons. And one of his proofs of demon possession is that he sometimes writes something on a piece of paper which the demon possessed can't see. As we all know, that's a time-honored demonic power, about which people couldn't possibly lie.
And then I wrote on this piece of paper, which I held up and was, sort of showing to her, Catherine, have you given up faith in our Lord? And she looked at me both quizzically and with a disappointed look and said, Dr. Gallagher, why are you showing me a blank piece of paper? So it was obvious that the demonic world was not only affecting her hearing in this selective way, but could even affect her sight.
Well, Dr. Hair Dye, you've convinced me. Or how about this? Just 6 months after the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, not 30 years, just 6 months after, a sitting congressman with all access to the footage referred to the insurrectionists as tourists, or as I call them, tourists. Because we all defecate and urinate in the hallways of the places we tour, right? And beat the hell out of the local police forces securing the buildings. Hell, who among us hasn't been to a famous building or a national landmark without announcing our desire to hang an elected official? Now join me in the world of QAnon, where masses of modern-day semi-literate humans believe that all kinds of public figures and entertainment personalities are part of a child sex trafficking ring run out of a local pizza parlor, which will soon be exposed when former President Trump comes riding out of the clouds on his white horse with heretofore cadaverous Democrat JFK Jr. proudly by his side. These are just some of the absolutely nonsensical things people believe today, when we know where the sun goes at night, when we know that germs spread illness and disease rather than the devil or the spells of witches. Even with all of the education and historically unrivaled levels of literacy, people believe in a flat earth, in the 6 days of creation, and that the real solution to gun violence is more guns. In just 7 months, the insurrection, with all the footage and reporting available, went from a universally agreed upon terrible thing to a narrative embraced by Republicans with absolutely no connection whatsoever to what actually happened. This known sack of shit made a documentary filled with almost nothing but lies about that terrible day, and it was aired on a major news network less than 2 years after the fact. By the way, that news network was recently caught lying to the tune of more than $750 million. But you, my Christian friends, think in the 30 to 40 years between Jesus' death and non-eyewitnesses sitting down to write about what happened in this illiterate, superstitious, ignorant world, based solely on someone's say after people passed around these stories one to the next for 30 years. You think they got it just exactly right without any legendary development whatsoever? Yeah? I'm sorry, but you people are idiots. And I say that not to be mean, but because we have absolute proof of legendary development right within the Gospels themselves. The first Gospel, Mark, doesn't even have post-resurrection appearances of Jesus. Matthew and Luke later add those appearances. Virgin births, magi following a star like it was Google Maps, the slaughter of the innocents, and a ridiculous census that never happened. Even later, John turns the legendary Jesus into the ever-existing, all-powerful creator God of the entire universe. Beyond that, the non-canonical Gospel of Peter has Jesus exiting the tomb, becoming so ginormous his head bumps into heaven, and having a conversation with a glorified cosmic talking cross. Jesus doesn't have to be a liar, a lunatic, or the Lord, my friends. He just has to be a guy with a following, who people liked, about whom people made up fanciful stories, passing those stories on to others who made those stories even more fanciful, for 3 to 4 decades minimum. If you believe those stories to be an accurate representation of what actually happened 2,000 years ago when people were dumb as fudge, there's another L we'll have to attach to you. Once again, I'm me. Thanks for watching.